Hi, Bhaskar. Bhaskar, can you hear me? Am I audible? Hi, Bhaskar, can you hear me? Okay, great. Thanks, Bhaskar, for confirming that. So we'll wait for Arun to join. And what actually topic that we are going to cover today, I'll just give you a hint as of now. So when Arun joins, I'll tell you briefly that what are we going to cover today. So once anybody starts with their fitness journey, or maybe get into Arun. Arun, okay, I have a request from Arun.
Hey, how are you?
Hey Sam, I'm
Good,
good.
good,
I'm
good,
good. How
good.
about you?
Finally, we are doing this.
It's been quite a while. Yeah,
Yes, it's been quite some. क्या पी
it's
रहे
been
हो
quite
आप?
a while.
Don't you
Black
want to
coffee.
get your sugar checked? Sugar levels भी check कर लो उसके साथ. Put a patch here.
Actually, you know what? So there are in fact quite a new company also which have been formed, which are recommending these, and they are giving a package. It was being offered
Hmm.
to my father
Hmm.
also
Hmm.
because he's also a diabetic. It was being offered to him also that we'll
Hmm.
give you a free device and it will be attached to on your hand or on
Hmm.
your in
Hmm.
fact stomach. We will put this machine. It will monitor your blood
Hmm.
sugar level
Hmm.
throughout the day. So,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
because they are on insulin, their blood level in fact changes whenever they eat, whenever they consume
जी.
something of that sort. Not like you attach in fact a machine on your hand and throughout the day you're monitoring that.
Yeah, I think,
It's a bullshit.
this is the same. I mean, I've had this discussion with a lot of clients, and, being in a position I am where, I have clients
Mm-hmm.
who are in a very privileged position to pretty much spend money on anything. So, recently I got this Chawanprash made by a very good. So I'm a big
Uh-huh.
believer of
Yeah.
Ayurveda, and it's something that I have been looking into for a long time.
Uh-huh.
So most of the FMCG brands that are making making Chyawanprash specifically, I'm not too convinced by it. So
Oh.
I was talking to a client who wanted it for his son, and then baat mein, I said, hey, let me check with
Mm-hmm.
my friend who is a very renowned Ayurvedic doctor in Ludhiana, Dr. Gohar Vatsyan. And I reached out to him and I asked him कि गोहार जी क्या आप मेरे
Mm-hmm.
लिए बना सकते हो? And then he was like, अरे Arun, I used to make, but demand उतना नहीं था. And they also make a minimum batch of 5 kilos. तो आई वाज लाइक टेंशन मत लो, 5 किलो तो मेरे लिए कोई बड़ी
Okay.
बात नहीं है बिकॉज मैं तो नॉर्मल ब्रांड्स का ही खा जाता हूँ. बट इट वाज एक्सपेंसिव ऑल्सो बिकॉज ही चार्ज मी 10,000 फॉर द एंटायर कंसाइनमेंट. सो आई सेड ठीक है, आई अंडरस्टैंड इट्स
Okay.
एक्सपेंसिव. एंड मैंने 5 किलो मंगवाए थे, मैंने अपने लिए 1 किलो रखा है. And I just made a few of my clients here taste it, and they used it for a few days. I made some of them sample batches, and it's all
Mm-hmm.
gone. So like, when you give something to
Oh, wow.
people where they genuinely can see the quality in it, vis-a-vis what is available, it makes sense. So, आप
Absolutely.
खाने पे आप खर्चा करो. Spend money on good food, good ingredients. किस चीज में आप खाना बनाते हो, कौन से तेल यूज करते हो. Avoid plastics, for example. Good. Spend money on like good water storage bottles and things like that. ये सब छोटी चीजों पे आप
Yeah.
खर्चा करो तो I completely understand, which over a long period of time contributes to a good, healthy, lifestyle and all of that. But to have this
Yeah.
obsession about data, to like, I mean, I also wear a smartwatch, but the only reason I wear a smartwatch is पहली बात मेरे को free
Uh-huh.
में मिला with my with my S21. I'm doing this live today with you on my iPhone. So I bought this S21 Ultra last year, and this was the first smartwatch I have ever, worn. I had an Apple Watch before, but when I usko 6 mahina use kiya tha, it was so annoying to charge it every day. I was like, watches should not require charging on a regular basis, and so I got rid of it. And then, it's just uncomplicated data. Like I use my smartwatch for, basically setting the rest period time between sets for clients. And sometimes it tells me that I've done this many steps.
Okay.
That is also indicative. And sometimes I get to see the messages or calls that are coming because I keep my phone on silent during sessions. But barring these basic functionalities, the smartphone has absolutely zero, like the smartwatch has zero requirement for me. Like my brother uses a very sport specific smartwatch. Like he has a Garmin device that, because he does a lot of hiking. So for that, he has a sport specific smartwatch. The Garmin monitors also, the sensors are also much more accurate. So when I see people using such data for, whatever sport they're following or whatever it is, right? I completely understand why they would require that data. But for a normal person who's absolutely healthy, कोई problem नहीं है, आपके blood reports में भी जो diabetic profile है, वहाँ पे सब कुछ सही है. Be it your fasting insulin, fasting blood glucose, HbA1c, all of that. And then also people are like, I still need to know which foods cause me inflammation and whatnot. So anyway, it's nice to be...
the more you complex it, it becomes more tedious for yourself.
I'm in a position today where I think I have some authority to say this. I don't keep a track of trends. मुझे खुद ही पता चल जाता है. And for the last few weeks, I have been hearing some of my clients who've been telling me that, should we wear this device? Is it useful to you in any way? And, I give them a very generic example. I tell them कि देखो, मुझे काजू कतली खाना बड़ा पसंद है. Like I love eating काजू कतली. उसमें अभी आप बोलोगे उसमें घी है, उसमें चीनी गिरता है, कितना कुछ है, right? But now one device tells me that this Kaju Katli is spiking your blood glucose levels very high. Am I going to stop? No. Because I have already found a way to moderate my Kaju Katli intake. It's not something I consume regularly, first of all. Exactly. And even if you're trying to be smart about your day-to-day food choices, where you want to know whether an apple is better for you than an orange, but over a period of time, how much difference does it make? And again, if there is fundamentally nothing wrong with you, which something like an HbA1c, which gives you an average blood glucose of 3-6 months, if that is already telling you कि सब कुछ range के अंदर है, तो why do you need to go into that detail? Just doesn't make sense. So my point is that one, you have to consider what is adherence. Like today, we are talking so much about sustainability. Almost every coach, I even have it added it into my tagline now, like, adapt, transform, and sustain, because everybody is yo-yoing, all the different restrictive diets that are out there. Ye hata do, wo hata do. I mean, people are still hungover कि मैंने चावल और चीनी छोड़ दिया तो मैंने life में कोई बड़ा चीज कर दिया. The fact of the matter is that, now that I myself am guilty of doing all those things, and I have learned my lessons the hard way. And now when people come to me, I try to give them that wisdom and say that, hey, you don't need to do those things. No food is really that bad for you where you need to completely restrict it. And at the same time, it's all about managing your calories, meal timings, lifestyle, focusing on getting enough sleep, hydration, supplementing the right nutrients. That's what it comes down to. But again, people just want to complicate things because they like being part of a trend. They like, I can understand the swag factor, the cool factor of it, that, okay, there's a cool device, it gives you some information. That's like when I'm driving, if a device in my, like my Mini Cooper had this, where I could do this in the central display, where it would tell me, depending on my throttle input, how much horsepower and how much torque is the vehicle making. It's something fun to see, if I'm driving fast and if I'm seeing how much power of this thing, it's just a nice thing to have in the central display. But that's a gimmick. Yeah. We call that a gimmick, but you don't start taking it seriously as a measure of something that is going to contribute towards your day-to-day food choices, So anyway, let's come back to the actual topic of what we actually plan to discuss today.
Yeah. So, Arun, there is one
Mm,
trend that I've been seeing and noticing. There are
mhm,
few organizations also, few companies also who
mhm,
primarily focus on these aspects. So, whenever anybody
mhm,
joins a gym or
mhm,
maybe start working out,
mhm,
irrespective of age, if you're a younger person, corporate person,
mhm,
or any age group, they go to gym. The first thing that they do, uh, that they'll jump on a treadmill or maybe
mhm,
any cardio machine. And if in
mhm,
case they have to work out, they'll do some bicep curls,
mhm,
maybe some shoulder
mhm,
presses, etc. So they are not clear
mhm,
on what they should do. Thereafter, once they don't get results, they don't see
mhm,
that it is impacting them within, say, 2, 3 weeks
mhm,
or within a month, say. They will search on Google. There are
mhm,
few websites, I'll not name them. There are ample number of
mhm,
12 weeks plan on that. And there are plans which are being followed by celebrities or by athletes
mhm,
or by bodybuilders. They'll
mhm,
start working on those plans. Then they again, in fact, see that
mhm,
though that plan is for 12 weeks, but they'll again see
mhm,
their progress in 2, 3 weeks and then
mhm,
again jump on any other plan. So what I wanted to
mhm,
understand from you is that how does training has to be for different
mhm,
set of people and how they should take
mhm,
approach towards that and how what can be a
mhm.
realistic expectation. So we can maybe that can be a good beginning point for our life.
So, being a coach for 10 years, having, and I'm being very honest here, having experimented with different workout programs for myself, different workout programs for my
Mm-hmm.
clients, I have a certain idea of, how I want to break the pattern, right? And how I want to, sort of
Mm-hmm.
treat different clients differently. Now, so today, a lot of my clients, in my initial years of being a coach, a lot of my clients used to give me a lot of credit for being just a good nutritionist. अरुण के पास डाइट के लिए जाएंगे बट साथ में वो वर्कआउट रूटीन भी दे देगा. I didn't get that much due credit for my workout plans. It's
Mm-hmm.
only in the last I would say, last couple of years where a lot of my clients have been both forthcoming and saying that your workout routines are like crazy. There's a client of mine named Dikshit. He
Mm-hmm.
was doing a very traditional training pattern, ek din chest, ek din shoulder. And then I put him on a more athletic conditioning format where he had already achieved a certain basic level of fitness in terms of his strength levels and all of that. So I started him on a lot of mobility drills, a lot of floor exercises and stuff like that. And he was telling me that now not only can he lift a lot and move better, but he was able to go back to a very old habit of his, which was dancing. He's able to like go back to his dancing and he feels like
Oh wow.
he's able to move a lot better and stuff like that. In fact, he's a pretty big junior NTR fan as well. So when RRR had come out, he posted a bunch of videos of doing the dance with some of his colleagues and he tagged me. So, for me, what I have identified, and this is, I think, what I need people to ask themselves when they, go into the gym for the first time, or even for that matter, when they start exercising, you have to be honest with yourself that, okay, fine, maybe the short term goal is to lose fat or gain muscle mass or, have a narrow waistline or have big biceps or whatever it is. And I completely understand that the general population doesn't really know how to go about it, right? So right now I'm working with a very
Exactly.
young 16-year-old girl, and she sent me a picture
Mm-hmm.
of a girl who is into CrossFit. So this girl has like very strong forearms, like
Mm-hmm.
even for a girl, the reference picture that she has sent me, the girl has like big traps, very bulky shoulders, like conditioned shoulders, core. So I said that this is a person who does a lot of CrossFit,
Mm-hmm.
and you are giving a reference of this person. Is this
Mm-hmm.
what you want to look like? And then she said, yeah. But currently,
Mm-hmm.
this girl looks very like a very feminine sort of person. Like she's very soft, everything. She's fit, but she wants to look like that. So I said, okay, so how is your trainer training you? And I see
Mm-hmm.
this pattern a lot. Everywhere you go, trainers, like 90% trainers are आज चेस्ट करेंगे, कल शोल्डर करेंगे, फिर उसके बाद हम लोग बैक करेंगे, उसके बाद हम लोग ये करेंगे, वो करेंगे. And it's a very generic pattern of training that they follow. Now, where that stems
Yeah.
from is that that is what has worked for them, and that is what they believe will work for their clients. And there is nothing wrong with that. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But
Mm-hmm.
making a training pattern for clients which you think works for them vis-a-vis what they might enjoy doing are two different things. Not to mention also
Absolutely.
understanding what this person perhaps needs to do in order to improve on certain movements. Now, for example, I've always had this very basic breakdown that a person should first and foremost in their workout pattern start with body weight exercises. That's a good way to not only warm up the relevant muscle that you're trying to train, but at the same time, you're also getting good at handling your own body weight. And one such movement that most people struggle with is the pull-up. And I take a lot of pride that a lot of my clients, after training with me for a few months, men or women, are able to do pull-ups. Then the second set of movements that you go into are compound lifts, where you're doing multi-joint exercises, whether it's a squat, deadlift, or whatever it is. And then third, of course, is then if you have, still enough volume left to do in your training, then you do, maybe your isolation movements or whatever it is. Now, whether you do it body part wise, whether you do push-pull legs, whatever format that you wish to do, that's completely up to you. You want to do it in a conditioning format, you want to do it in a strength format, you want to do it with more focus on hypertrophy. That's very, very individual. But the important factor here is that how do you get somebody to do a pull-up? How do you get them to start doing squats, right? So most people, when I assess, they are not even able to, like many people have knee injuries or whatever. Like a very simple way in which I make a client do a squat. I have this client right now. She has serious, hip mobility issues. So if I have to get enough depth on her squat, I start building her up by making her do box squats. So I'll keep reducing the level. So first I'll tell her, maybe just sit on the bench and get up with the weight, and then slowly progress towards a lower bench. And then eventually I'll start, making her do squat by, making her do in a goblet style or in a front squat posture. And then dhire, her confidence builds, because 90% of the time these people are scared that they're going to get hurt. What if the weight falls on them? What if they lose balance and all of that? So to break it down, it simply comes down to what pattern of training do you like doing? And this is not something most people can understand, because when they go to the gym for the first time, they are just submitting themselves to the trainer and saying, "Aap bolo." So I don't expect you to answer that question for yourself right in the beginning. But eventually, if you're somebody who likes to mix it up by doing other things, or if you like to train yourself a certain way, which is quote unquote going to be sustainable for you, then that's what you need to work towards. And what I like is many of my peers who started with me, like I was also somebody back in 2009, 2008, who was just going to the gym, who just wanted to be fit. And then I started focusing more towards what I like doing. So somebody like me, I like the whole bodybuilding format of training. Some of my peers have become more serious about powerlifting. So it's good to find a sport that you can progress towards rather than just having, let's say, aesthetic goals. Instead of doing that, you rather, have more sport oriented goals, and then, work towards that. And then the programming can be done more specifically for that. So again, coming back to this girl, who wants to look like a CrossFit athlete, when she told me that, I said, "Okay, now I understand what you like looking like. For that, you have to train this way." So when I gave her the workout routine, which, consisted of a lot of mobility drills for her to start with, it's a good 15-minute warm up, then a few calisthenic movements, which are, I have made circuits with different compound lifts and a few, high heart rate movements. All of that, when I combined and gave her, she's now coming back with the feedback and saying, "I've never enjoyed training this way. And I'm absolutely loving it." And I said, exactly, it's not just an aesthetic goal that you have now. You now also understand what it's like to train like people like this, and not just have an aesthetic goal per se. So I think that's where most people miss out on. That's why a lot of people don't like training. They hate going to the gym. Even athletes as famous as Brock Lesnar have said it out loud that they hate training. Muhammad Ali used to say, "I hate training." But you go through it because you're doing it for a sport. When you get better at that sport with respect to the training that you're doing, then there is a certain joy, there is a certain gratification कि ये मैं कर रहा हूँ. Otherwise, going to the gym every day, वही आज हम chest करेंगे, आज हम shoulder करेंगे, it gets very monotonous and boring. So I think the first thing we need to identify is that people need to really know what they like as a training format before we go into more specific details of how they start.
Okay. So taking cue from this, Arun, you have said you have touched on very important part of this. How important is then a client and a coach relation of communication in this?
So see, that's what
How
again.
important
So
that would be?
like I said, so it's very difficult for most coaches to understand. And again, I would call myself today more of a lifestyle coach, where I take my client feedbacks very seriously. Okay? And I understand that if a client comes back to me after some time and says, I'm not enjoying training this way. So there are one set of coaches who will say that, look, it's working for you. And this is what's going to get you results. This is what I believe in. This is my training methodology. आपको करना है आप करो, आपको नहीं करना है किसी और के पास जाओ. And I'm not somebody who interacts in that manner with my clients. I used to, but then I realized that that's not really good for business. So it's not that I have diluted my value system in any way, but what I have essentially done is that I have started mixing it up by including other formats of training into my training, where my clients have a mix of everything. So today, my average client does at least once or twice a week, they will do yoga. Then in between, as I was doing gymnastics, a lot of my clients took an interest in it. So I got the guy who was coaching me into doing gymnastics to doing, some conditioning and calisthenic classes for some of my clients. And they do at least 3 to 4 days of basic strength and conditioning with me. So this way, the monotony sort of breaks for them during the week. They enjoy getting 2-3 different formats. Some of them I'll even throw in some kickboxing classes, or just generic martial arts of some sort. So that always mixes things up. So either you can be that coach who says, "Nahi, मैं आपको इसी तरह करवाऊंगा," or you can be a coach and says, "Okay, I understand that you are not enjoying this pattern of training. So let me throw in a few other things to make it a little more interesting." So like my very good friend Junaid, if you have seen his stories, he, according to me, is one of the most fun trainers that I know. Like, of course, he's very good at his job. But he said something to me which I really liked some time ago. He said, "Arun, there are 2 moments with a client which are very critical in a session. One is, how do you start the workout? And number 2, how do you end the workout?" And in both those moments, if the client is not really happy with you, then you have failed as a personal trainer. And that was a beautiful point that she had put across to me some time ago, which really gave me an insight of how he thinks. And it made me more open-minded into, accepting client feedback and, making changes accordingly. And in return, I have had to learn a few other things as well, right? And look, from a result perspective, as long as the client is moving and burning enough calories in any sort of format of training, they are going to get results. In that sense, there is nothing wrong. But what really matters here is that the coach understands what the client wants. And yes, you give the client what you would like to give them as a format of training, but there is nothing wrong in including a few things which the client also perhaps enjoys doing. So it's very critical that the client is not shy or not hesitant in communicating what they want, because end of the day, you're the end customer. You have to open up and tell the coach, what do you want? If you're not happy, don't suck it up and be like, no, but my coach knows better. Mujhe nahi bolna hai. Please open up and tell, because that's the only way the relationship will last. And at the same time, the coach also needs to be empathetic in understanding that, okay, this is my client's feedback and I need to make some changes accordingly.
Okay, good. So, what also happens that, rightly you mentioned that if in case a person is not able to communicate with the coach, they actually, some instances, some of the coaches actually look out for quick fixes, or at some point in time, the client also look for some quick fixes and just pass the day, pass maybe the training sessions, and then move on to the next day, like hoping something better will happen. And what you actually mentioned is actually a very good way in forming a long-term relationship, not only with the client, but also the client have with themselves, like learning kickboxing, learning gymnastics, strength and training, mobility. These are something which anybody can continue for their lifetime.
No, I mean, if I just want to quickly interject, I mean, I have been following you also for a while now, and you've done a transformation under me. And later on, I saw that you started doing a lot of calisthenics. You recently took up horse riding. And I think, that shows that, and some of those posts of yours, I think, have got more hits than some of your more generic posts about, training or anything of that sort. And I think that's what people
Exactly.
want. People want to see that if a guy is fit, what can he do with his body? I mean, theek hai yaar. I mean, social media is saturated with people doing, 100 pull-ups and 250 kilo deadlifts, and it's all very impressive. And if that's what you like doing and you want to
Yeah.
progressively get better with that, that's great. Nobody's stopping you from doing that. But I think the Aam Janta, and if you're really trying to target the Aam Janta at some level, they also want to see what you're capable of doing with all that so-called fitness that you have. So even in my case, a lot of people discounted me that Arun is just this big guy, whatever, he can lift, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But suddenly I'm doing gymnastics, and the fact that I had that sort of mind-body coordination suddenly
Yeah.
shot up my traction on social media in terms of people reaching out to me and saying that here's a guy
Mm-hmm.
who is not only muscle bound or whatever, but is open to trying, doing different things with his body. And turns out he's not that bad at it. I wasn't great, but I wasn't bad either given my body
Yeah.
weight. So I think that's what even people look out for.
Yeah. And to be very frank, Arun, even I
Hmm.
was scared. I messaged you sometimes that man, be slightly conscious about how you're
Gee.
lifting on the handstand, and you did
No, no,
fantastic.
I appreciate that. All right, let's moving on. Yeah.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. So how, in fact, different is training for a woman versus a man? How should they approach for? Because
Hmm.
mostly how I see women in gym or maybe in general in routine, they are mostly stuck
Hmm.
on the cardio machines or maybe some sort of
Hmm.
aerobics or Tabata workout or maybe
Hmm.
skipping or throwing a ball. Should they be limited to that, or it is safe and good for women also to resistance training
So
for
let
resistance
me give
training?
you an example of my wife. So my wife, so she underwent this amazing transformation since 2020 September,
Mm-hmm.
where she lost about 17 kilos of weight,
Mm-hmm.
and by about, I would say, May, June last year, she had sort of achieved what I would say her foundational physique. And that's when I started sort of pushing her that, hey, you
Mm-hmm.
now need to up your calories. You now need to sort of, look at shaping up certain parts of your body and not just look at the conditioning aspect of it. So my BB Fit coach, Sebastian, who is brilliant with conditioning format of training, really pushed her and taught her a lot of
Yeah.
things. But when she started doing a few sessions with me, very basic strength and conditioning, suddenly we started identifying that
Mm-hmm.
her breathing pattern is completely out of whack, and she doesn't know how to grip the bar in
Mm-hmm.
most movements. She has no concept of a tempo. And my wife is extremely like gifted genetically. Like, usko dekh ke mujhe jalan hoti hai kabhi kabhi. Then I'm like, are you on gear or something? Like, I'll end up joking with her. And it's a very common instance that whichever gym she goes to when she's working out, she's this very jumpy person, very hyper, very energetic. So a lot of people come and ask her, are you an athlete? Do you compete? They don't even believe that she's 38, like she's turning 38 next month. So when people look into all those aspects,
Mm-hmm.
they don't understand that genetics play such a huge role in how any person shapes up. And now coming very specifically to women, look, I think we've addressed this quite a few times with most of these women that if you're just going to waste your time doing only cardio or only aerobic centric movements, then it's not really going to help you in the long run. It's a very validated fact that both men and women need to have a combination of both resistance training and cardiovascular activities from a basic balance perspective. Now, coming back to someone like my wife,
Mm-hmm.
who loves doing the jumpy stuff, who loves doing the aerobic stuff, when it came to her training with me, right? Yesterday, very surprisingly, was one of the, and in fact, we shot a video which you will also like, you and several others like. We shot that video
Yeah.
yesterday afternoon where we just did a basic arm workout together. And when we were driving back, she was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh, this was a really good workout." I was like, "Really? You liked the workout?" And then she's like, yeah, I loved it. Like it was really intense and stuff like that. So I've been focusing on very basic things with her. I've been just trying to teach her like the breathing patterns through an exercise, how to hold her core while doing it, the
Mm-hmm.
tempo, the grip, placing your body in the right angle. It looks very boring, but then when it's executed, you suddenly realize how challenging it is. It's like golf. देखने में boring लगता है, but when you actually play it, you realize how
Yeah.
technical it is, right? And now she's enjoying this
Yeah.
pattern of training with me, where I have broken it down to doing very simple, training patterns with me, where we are focusing more on just building up her strength, building her up in a more symmetrical manner. In fact, I've been throwing the idea to her that maybe she should contemplate stepping on stage as well, but that's completely up to her. But the fact is that women generally like that whole HIIT format of training. It's a very psychological thing for them. They like that high, like, they're jumping around,
Yeah.
they're like sweating. It's a good psychological high for them. And I think from that sense, again, swinging back to that whole point, what I spoke about, where it is important to take feedback into account. So what I tell my wife is, like, you mainly train your legs with me. So she does her twice a week that I train legs. Now she joins me and she trains with me. But the other 3 days, I tell her, you do your basic conditioning format that you like doing. The funny thing is, over the last few weeks that we've been training, she's been more inclined towards training with me. And she's like, oh, aaj tum kya kar rahe ho? And I'm like, I'm doing maybe some chest and back. And then she's like, okay, I'll join you. I'm like, okay, aja. And then she suddenly become more inclined towards doing very conventional resistance training with me. And it shows, because her genetics are so good. If she's doing something right, something that might take a month to show on someone else's physique, I mean, I'm so jealous of her that way. It shows within a week on her. So yes, again, it's a balancing act between what a woman would like in terms of her training format to be. Most of them like the aerobic stuff. Most of them like the jumpy stuff. Many of them have the psychological block that if I lift and train like a man, I will look like a man. That's not really the case. And
Yes, absolutely. Arun, so you are bang on this point. This point actually comes to me also from various people while I'm working out in gym, that if in case I'm lifting weights, I'm doing the squats, barbell squats, will my legs become like men? I don't want to be so bulky. In fact, I don't want my shoulders to be so broad. I look like a man. So that is actually one of the misconception, or you say a myth, which is there in mind of people, that a woman will start looking like a lady bouncer. But that is not
no,
the
I
case.
think, see, I completely empathize with them. I mean, it's more of a interpretation of cause and effect. It's as simple as that. I mean, I get this so much from my own clients, men or women, who come and tell me. I was talking to this client the other day, and he was like, I think if I train with you, under you, for another 9-10 months, I should look like you. And I was like, really? Okay. Okay, fine. I guess you look like me in another 9 to 10 months' time. So, I mean, everybody has an oversimplified version of what they think is, achievable. But I mean, again, coming back to some of my clients, who've been under me for a substantial time period, they've gone and worked with all kinds of coaches, who try to sell the most trending thing out there. But they always come back to me knowing that Arun just sticks to the basics. Arun just talks what he knows works in terms of nutrition, training, whatever. And what they then realize is, wow, I mean, even though we're making good progress, what we're actually looking to achieve is going to take some time. It's not going to happen overnight. And women who go through it, who give resistance training an honest chance, will eventually find out, like my wife and many others, because my wife herself used to be somebody like that, who used to believe that if she lifted like men, she would look like men. But now there are so many women who follow me on social media, who have seen my wife, even in between when I was training Samantha for 2 months, when they saw her. And many of these women now, I think, have become a good ambassador of what resistance training can actually do for women, which is, not only help them look shapely, more hourglass-like, but especially when they go through their menstrual cycles during the month, doing strength training gives them a higher threshold to pain from the cramping and all of those things. Then they have better hormonal balance, they have better appetite, they have better skin health, their quality of hair, nail improves. And all these things are things that women are obsessed about. Like, I have so many women messaging me and saying, how do you maintain this sort of a skin? So sometimes I joke and I tell them growth hormone. And so they are like, nahi, sach bolo, aap kaise maintain karte ho? And I'm like, honestly not much. I mean, my base skincare is very, very basic, like just keep it moisturized, exfoliate, whatever. But that's what is, I think that's how we need to sell it to them, that, like, I don't tell a woman that you should train like me because I need your shoulders to develop. They don't like that kind of communication. I think the communication has to be more on, okay,
Yeah.
if you do strength training, I think you're going to fit into the dress better. So I do this with my wife. Like, I recently told her that, she's filling out her denims very well. Her glutes are looking developed. And so now when I'm making her do, when I train, glutes and hamstrings, she loves to train with me. She's pushing heavy. She's not like, "Arey, bahut zyada weight hai, kam karo." None of those things. Because I told her that her butt is filling out better in her jeans. Or for that matter, when she's wearing a crop top, her waist is looking really tight. And I come and touch her lower back and I say, "Yahan ke muscles achhe lag rahe hain." So I think when you try to sell something, you have to know what your audience wants, right? So if you're trying to sell
Yeah.
resistance training to women as a coach, I think instead of giving them scientific facts and instead of giving them all that jargon, which they don't honestly care about, you have to speak their language and you have to communicate in a manner that, hey, if you wear a crop top, your core is going to look really nice. If you wear that jeans or joggers, your butt is going to look really nice. And considering how superficial the world has become today, it's very easy to play with a woman's mind in that sense when you're trying to sell them something. And so that's what I do now when I'm making
Yeah.
a lady client of mine do squats. I'm not telling her that this is going to develop your thigh muscles. I don't try to do that. I'd rather tell them that if you do this, your legs are going to look leaner, more toned. Your legs are your larger muscles. You're burning more fat with every minute as we are doing these more muscles, and we're training them. And women especially, they love training legs because leg workouts really shoot up your heart rate. And this is a common pattern I've noticed. Women love their heart rate being very high. I think maybe that's why they like worrying also. उनको फालतू में स्ट्रेस लेने में इसीलिए पसंद होता है क्योंकि उनको अपना हार्ट रेट हर समय ऊपर चाहिए. So you make a lady client do legs even twice or even thrice a week, they'll jump into it. But the moment you tell them आज arms करेंगे या shoulders करेंगे, they're a little conscious. But again, if you start selling it in a manner where they feel they look good in a dress or they just look good in general, if they do that, they're all for it.
How it is beneficial for them? We have targeted.
You have to, look, now I'm at this point of time in my career right now where I have understood that, you have to treat your clients like babies, right? And, if you tell them what you want to tell them, then that's never going to work. You have to tell them what they want to hear, but in a manner that is good for them, right? So you just have to learn how to sell it to your audience. As long as you're doing it ethically, you're not deviating from scientific facts, you're not deviating from principles. Even now there are women who ask me, like, do you think I should add a fat burner? Do you think I should eliminate carbs from my diet and all that jazz? And when I tell them that wo sab zarurat nahi hai, you're already making good progress, right? I don't try to give them gyan about, how low carb diets don't work in the long run or how fat burners can be harmful to them. I try to sell it in a manner where I tell them, look, instead of wasting money on a fat burner, why don't you add collagen, which is going to do benefits for your this thing? Instead of, wasting money on, XYZ, some supplement or whatever, why don't you buy a better quality fish oil or anything of that sort, or maybe even go invest in good clothing. I actually sometimes tell this to clients, like, आपके कपड़े ढीले हो गए हैं, कुछ अच्छा पहन के आओ. I think, now you're looking better. So some of my male clients, they generally are very conscious. They wear very loose t-shirts on top. And sometimes I've gifted them a slightly body hugging t-shirt or something. And I've told them, ये पहन के आज workout करो आप. And they come back and I'm like, देखो आपके हाथ कितने अच्छे लग रहे हैं. And they're like, oh, really? Wow. So I've found what works for them psychologically. And I think that's where a bit of my success lies, that I've identified that people need to hear certain things. They need positive affirmations from their coach. So yes, as a coach, be the devil's advocate in pointing out where they're going wrong, but don't be a gyan master for them. They have got enough gyan from their parents and their spouses all their life. Now, all that they need from you is some level of validation, some amount of motivation, And if they're being consistent, if they're putting in their best efforts, and if they're just being a little concerned about things which are perhaps irrelevant to you, but if you can give them a positive affirmation there, then why not? Like I tell some of my female clients after a good session of legs, I'm like, nice booty pump, you know? I mean, I sometimes I'm scared, like, you know, if I'm going to get sued, but I somehow get away with it. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So touching on, so as in fact, I see Supriya has been one of
Hmm.
your finest transformation. So what I see that from where you told me that Supriya lost in somewhere about 1.5 years time, around 17 kgs of weight also. What I see her
Hmm.
and how I've seen her work out, I'm sure she was very adherent on her diet piece as well. And also with her regime, what else she's doing apart from the working out in gym. She has been very consistent with that. How important is
So,
that apart from genetics?
you're actually not very right on that because my wife and I both are massive foodies. So what I essentially did for
Mm-hmm.
her was, she tried the whole health meal service and all that jazz for a while, and then she eventually said, "This is not working for me." And she also is somebody who doesn't like eating that often. She prefers eating just 2 or 3 meals in a
Okay.
day. So she उसके थोड़े बहुत मतलब for the lack of a better word उसके थोड़े बहुत नाटक हैं. So what I essentially did was I told her
Mm-hmm.
that look, these are your macros and these are the number of meals that you need to eat in a day.
Mm-hmm.
So like right now I tell her she just has to eat 3 meals in a day. These are her macros, and I've told her that each meal should have this much of fat, protein, and carbs, along with a certain quantity of fiber. And I tell her that for getting this much protein, you need to either
Mm-hmm.
eat this much of fish or this much of chicken or paneer or whatever it is. Now, she works with a Bengali kitchen, which is not a health meal service kitchen. It's a proper Bengali canteen. She works with them. She tells them how much of what she wants
Mm-hmm.
every day in the morning, and they send her that food. And it's very typical Bengali food. It's food made with mustard oil, all the traditional spices are there, but the quantity of rice, the dal, the protein source, which could be a paneer, fish, chicken, whatever, the sabzi, is as per what we generally Bengalis as a community like eating. And that aspect of it, because
Okay.
she's managed to maintain it more consistently, like she really enjoys her food now because she's eating more of her local flavors. Plus,
Mm-hmm.
she throws in, a scoop of ice cream a couple of times a week. She loves having her beers. So I have also made sure that there is a fairly decent buffer between her maintenance calories and her current caloric intake. And as a result of all of it, through some trial and error, we've arrived at a portion size and everything which is working for her in terms of her staying conditioned. But at the same time, she's eating enough to recover
Mm-hmm.
and very incrementally grow parts of her physique which she's trying to improve. It's not an easy balance to achieve overnight, but again, from a sustainability aspect, if you look at it, once she achieved what her initial fat loss goal was, for me, the biggest challenge then was how do I keep her going on it? And that's where she and I had a very honest conversation. And
Mm-hmm.
I told her, ये हेल्थ मील सर्विस वर्विस तेरे लिए नहीं काम करेगा, तू ऐसे नहीं खा सकती है. Tell me, how do you like eating? And then she's like, I just want normal ghar ka khana. And that's when we sort of arrived at this balance. And this is what
Mm-hmm.
has really worked for her from a more long term basis. So हाँ, थोड़ा कभी कभी weight fluctuate करता है. There are good weeks and bad weeks. There could be weeks where she's indulged a little too much, but then she knows it and then she balances it out the following week. But having
Right.
said that, she's super, super regimented when it comes to her training. So she gets in her cardio, she gets in her workouts every day.
Mm-hmm.
She's very, disciplined when it comes to her basic supplementation. She gets her blood work done every 3 months, which she shares with me. So because of all that, over a period of time, she has continued to improve and not just reach the initial transformation and completely let go.
Okay. So the takeaway from this, I would say, is that it is very important to understand what is the macro that your coach is telling you. Now you figure it out, maybe discuss with your coach also, that how they can actually fit this macro into their daily lifestyle. Then second, if in case you
Hmm.
want to be on a flexible diet where you want to in fact
Hmm.
curb your cravings some days and maybe have to maybe enjoy with friends or family members on Sunday, how do you fit that into your lifestyle
Right.
and still continue? the third point that I understand from this is that
Hmm.
you have to be regular with your training. If in case there are some days that where
Hmm.
you are not able to work out, you have to, maybe you
Hmm.
can compensate that on other days so that you are able to maintain the progress that we
Right.
have done over a period of time.
Yeah, like case in point, yesterday was our
Okay.
anniversary, so we mostly ate out. We went and watched
Yeah.
the new Top Gun movie. We came home. She said, I mean, काफी रेत हो गई थी रात को, but she said I'm still feeling hungry. So I said, sure, we'll order something. So she
Mhm.
ordered a risotto. I ordered myself a steak. And by the time we went to bed, it was 3 in the morning. But then we skipped breakfast today. We didn't really have our breakfast and we directly had a lunch and we sort of balanced it out that way. And we aren't training today, but we were supposed to train
Mhm.
today. So we are going to be training tomorrow to make up for it. So, be practical, be very pragmatic with yourself that you need to get in a certain amount of, you need to stay within your caloric limits. You need to stay within your training, this thing. And just get it done. It's not Sunday, Monday se chalu karenge. No. Just finish it off. Whatever is was meant for the week, for that week, finish it off. And that's the same thing I'm doing with my coach also, Gurdesh. Gurdesh also, he watches my stories. He knows the kind of life I have. And he's just given me my macro spread throughout the week
Mhm.
in terms of how much I need to consume pre-workout, post-workout, lunch, yeah. And I just mix and match and try to manage that instead of, being too obsessed about getting it from a certain food source and cooking it in a certain way. So some days I land up depending a lot on shakes because I'm just moving around too much, and some days I only eat food. So it's about that over a period of time,
Mhm.
that consistent dedication towards your program is what's going to get you results. That's what really matters in the long run. If people have to stop obsessing over doing things perfectly every single day, rather try to do it as perfectly as you can, but do it over a long period of time to see those results. So you'll have a good week. Don't get depressed. Try to make the next
Yeah.
week better. I've gone through phases where, like last year, I dedicated myself 2 months towards getting very, very transformed. And I started it in October. I even made a group on WhatsApp where I invited people to come and witness how I was going to go do it. And next thing I know, in the month of November, I had to go to Budapest and be with a client for 3 weeks, training him there. I was living out of a hotel and whatnot. So I decided to scrap it. But did I stop training? Did I stop following a diet or anything? No, I still continued. Then, when in January we finally
Mhm.
settled down, we moved to a new place and all of that. Suddenly, over a period of February to mid March, I lost about 7, 8 kilos, and that's when I was doing my gymnastics a lot. So all that conditioning added with the weight training, suddenly I
Yeah.
dropped weight and I was looking really good. I was feeling good. And then again, I started, thinking, Abhi, let's be a little more focused with my training. And since mid-March till now, I have made some pretty good progress on a lot of my body parts. Like my legs were never my strong point, but a lot of people have been saying your legs have improved, your calves have improved, your triceps have improved. I'm like, ठीक है. I mean, I am just being consistent with it. I just want to keep putting in the effort. I don't really have an end goal. I'm just loving the process. I'm loving the way I feel. I'm loving the way I look. This week, for example, I wasn't so regimented with my cardio. I have been waking up and looking a little bit soft, but then I know I'll get it in place by next week. I don't want to drive myself nuts, going crazy. But at the same time, ऐसा नहीं कि पूरा पागल हो जाओ, binge fest में चले जाओ, दारू पी लो, चाट खा लो, ये वो कर लो. ठीक है यार. I mean, if you're only able to do 60-70% because you've got other things going on in life, at least do that much now. And the days you can give in your 100%, give your 100%.
Yeah. Absolutely. Okay, so there is one question that again and
Hmm.
again pops up with few people, that if in case anybody is not
Hmm.
pursuing bodybuilding totally, how important is logging the workouts? Maybe knowing
Hmm.
that what progress I have made over a period of time.
So
How important is that?
I log in workouts for all my clients. I log in, I'm somebody who carries a clipboard. I log in workouts for my clients. I mean, I don't log in for every single movement, but the major movements I primarily log in. I even sort of make into I even put like a feedback in terms of range of motion and tempo and stuff like that. And when the clients are training with me, I tell them that, 2 weeks ago, this movement, this was the issue. Now this week, this is better. And then the clients like the fact that, I have records of that, because now in a very detailed manner, I'm able to tell them where exactly have they improved and where exactly have they perhaps gone back. For example, I was really struggling with one of my clients with his squat depth. So I tried numerous things. I was making him do a bunch of hip mobility exercises. उसकी glute strength मैंने improve की. फिर भी उसका squat depth उतना improve नहीं हो रहा था. So I finally decided one day, I was talking to this friend of mine in Dubai, and he was like, why don't you just try a simple thing, just do heel elevated squats. His depth will automatically improve. I said, sure, let's try that. And, I just put like these small 2.5 kilo plates under his heels, and suddenly his squat depth has improved. So logging in the workouts, and not only logging in, also planning what you're planning to do the next day, setting some targets for that week in terms of cardio training, whatever it is very, very important. In fact, when I sit with a client, I always tell them, at least for the first 5 minutes, when we're doing some warm up, कि आज हम ये करेंगे. This is the target. This is what we're looking at. These are the things I'm looking at in terms of what I think would have improved since last week. And all of that, keeps them on the spot. It shouldn't just be कि आप आए, हाँ चलो आज ये करेंगे, शुरू हो गए, and it's that. Logging in the workouts, keeping a track of it, goal setting, all of this is very important. This is how you build goals for your clients. I mean, look, it's one thing that a client has a goal and you help them achieve it. But if you as a coach don't build goals for them, what's going to keep the relationship going? My client Naga Chaitanya, when he came to me last year, I kid you not, he's been my client for more than a year now. But when he first came to me, all he wanted me to do was just fix his diet. And he just said कि 2-3 sessions मेरे साथ तू कर, मेरा बस form कहीं कहीं गलत जा रहा है, तू सही कर. Today, if I'm not there in the gym, he's like, I don't feel like working out. Can we train in the evening then? When are you free? You tell me, we'll work out then. So I asked him one day, I mean, like, are you a little dependent on me? He's like, it's not that I'm dependent on you. I just feel that if you're not there, I'm getting 100% out of my workout. So, so that's the value add I have managed to create with a client where, that's how they feel about me. It's not that they're dependent on me because I'm only there to motivate them or only there to make sure they don't get injured. They genuinely feel that as a coach, when I'm standing next to them, they're not getting the most out of their workout if I'm not there. And that only happens when you are periodically monitoring things, logging things, telling them what needs to be improved. And that's how the cycle goes.
Okay. So there is one question.
We've been getting a lot of questions, in fact.
Again.
So we've been ignoring them.
Yeah, Vivan, actually, Vivan has been asking something about the creatine and the hair loss connection. Now he want to ask that how to build muscle for hard gainer, smoothie for a hard gainer. What is he asking? What do you recommend for a smoothie?
I don't know. I mean, if you ask me, I can go crazy. Like, put full fat milk, put in, a scoop of whey, a scoop of casein, some bananas, peanut butter, blah, blah, blah. You can go crazy. You can make a 10,000 calorie shake if you want. I think hard gainers, what they need to understand is the first and foremost mistake hard gainers make is you're not training hard enough. Eating is actually the easy part with hard gainers. A lot of my clients who are hard gainers, what I generally see is that they don't have a great appetite. So step one that I do with them is to make sure that if they can't eat the food that they need to eat in terms of calories and macros, I try to give them in the form of calories. Liquid calories. Now, this can come from a mass gainer shake, or this can come from a smoothie that you can make on your own. In fact, one of my clients, Neha, once I had given her, the very first day she started my diet, I just told her to put about 150 ml of almond milk with about half a scoop of whey and about 50 grams of blueberries. And she gulped it down and she puked. And that's when I realized that how stomach was so sensitive to handling that volume of food at a time. And then I told her that you really need to go easy. Because she was like, ye to koi bhi pee sakta tha, utni koi badi baat nahi hai. I'm like, that might be true, but the thing is that your stomach, is not at all able to handle even that much amount of food. So you need to give it in smaller quantities to yourself. When she came to me, I believe she was 39 kilos at a height of 5'8". And then from there, we got her up to about almost 65 kilos. But 65 kilos with a decent waistline, good amount of muscle mass and all of that. So phase one is to overcome the lack of appetite that is there by very slowly increasing your calories. And if you can't do it in the form of solid food, please try to do it in a very sensible manner with liquid smoothies, whether it's a gainer or whether it's, making smoothies. Second, when you're going to train, now that the nutrition aspect is sorted, train as hard as you can, because the amount of muscle growth that you can stimulate by training hard is what is going to result in improving your appetite. And then when both these aspects go hand in hand, automatically you're able to notice that you're able to eat more food, आपकी भूख बढ़ने लगी है, आपके बॉडी में प्रोग्रेस आने लगा है. And the most fun thing about coaching people who are hard gainers is that the results show within weeks. They're already so lean, there's hardly any fat on them. Every kilo or 2 kilos of weight that they gain, most of it is muscle mass, and it starts showing in their arms, their trunk, their legs. It's a psychological high for me as a coach to see my client progress that fast. But most hard gainers make this mistake where they think they just need to eat more. And then they go and only waste money on like tons of mass gainers and stuff like that. And they're good products, but instead of spending that much money on a gainer, why don't you just eat good food? And if you can't eat it, make a smoothie. Where they miss out is they don't understand they need to train equally hard. And that's where they don't focus much on. They only focus on the eating, which doesn't really help in, getting any results in the long term.
Okay. So, talking about, I think as far as I know, Arun, that you have been training for nearly
20
15 to
years.
18 years at least.
At least I'm going to the gym and doing something for the last 20 years. How much of that training was fruitful doesn't matter. But yes, I have, been going to the gym for almost 20 years now. So yeah.
Okay. So before I get on to this point, I would want to address this. Creatine and any adverse effect, would you recommend for hard gainers?
Absolutely. I love creatine monohydrate. It's not just for hard gainers, it's for anybody and everybody. You have any kind of physical activity that you're indulging in, creatine is going to help. If you're not exercising or not physically active, then maybe creatine supplementation won't help much. Your body already produces a little bit of it. Your liver and kidney both produce some amount of creatine for natural energy sources. It is the body's third energy pathway, if you're not aware of it, besides aerobic and anaerobic respiration. But more importantly, if you're into any kind of a sport, not just weightlifting, swimming, marathon running, anything, creatine monohydrate supplementation, and I'm very specifically saying creatine monohydrate supplementation is going to be very, very useful to you in terms of improving your performance. And there are no adverse effects as such.
Okay. Okay. So, Arun, that now we know that you have been training for nearly 20 years. So, what have been your learnings? I'm sure that you would have tried several plans. You would have worked with coaches. You would have had your lessons on diet, on workout regimes, on the weight that you have been lifting. So, what has been your learning? So, now that you have arrived at a position where you have a good relationship, not only with your diet, but also with your own body. You are able to assess that how any specific routine, how any specific food is actually affecting you. So what has changed over a period of time? Because you have, I think, competed also. You have made, in fact, a drastic transformation at times also. There was a time where you used to be somewhere about 98.
I've gone up to as high as 110 kilos. And then I was averaging 98 for a long time. And this year I have been mostly averaging about 91, 92, but people say I look more muscular now, which I find very funny, but okay.
Yeah. So what have you learned over a period of time in this all this while?
I think the biggest lesson that I have learned is that you have to be patient with yourself. I think the reason why I have managed to do this for 20 years, vis-a-vis compared to many of my friends, I was just thinking about a friend of mine called Sushant Ashok. Sushant and I started going to the gym back when I had just finished my 10th grade. And I was about 16 years of age. And, he started going to the gym with me. And Sushant still looks the same. He's still that's really lean, tall guy, and nothing's really changed about him because he and I went to the gym. He trained with about 2 months with me, and then he stopped because he was focusing more on his 11th grade, 12th grade, and all of that. And I continued training, and here I am. I was even training through my board exams in 12th and whatnot. So for me, what I realized is that the reason I went to the gym is very different than what most people go to the gym for. I did not go because I wanted to look a certain way. I did not go because I wanted big biceps. Ye wo mera kuch nahi tha. I was bullied as a kid. My initial years of schooling, I was in boarding school. And I realized that, being physically strong gave me a lot of confidence. So when I started, exercising back in 7, 8 standard, I saw the way people's perception of me changed because I started physically changing. So I went from looking like this very soft mama's boy, with a little bit of a, paunch or whatever, to, doing 5 push-ups, 10 pull-ups and whatever every day. And suddenly, my body started leaning out. I started feeling more athletic. I started I would prefer running than walking. When I was doing stuff, I was cycling more and just being more physically active. And by the time I was in 9th standard, I was doing like maybe 200-300 squats every morning, like 300-400 crunches, 100 push-ups. My dad would not let me go to the gym up to a certain age. So he was like, Tumko jo karna hai, ghar pe hi karo. And I would just, in a very regimented manner, spend about 45 minutes doing that. And next thing I realize is that I'm very good at athletics. I'm able to, I went till state level in my javelin and shot put in school and all those things. So that confidence that training gave me in terms of feeling strong, in terms of the energy levels I had, and most importantly, the way people perceived me, that made me realize that, okay, I need to keep doing this because I like this feeling. I like this feeling that somewhere I'm a force to be reckoned with. And that was the only reason I went to the gym, because I just wanted to be strong. I had no other reason to go to the gym. I didn't care how I was going to end up looking. And I think because I gave myself that goal, and it still remains a goal, I have just told myself that even now, if I want to look a certain way, I have peers who I have, improved so much, guys like Junaid Kaliawala, Yuva Prakash, then, if this guy called Ashik Suleiman, there are so many of these guys. I have been watching them for years together. Even Manoj Sarangapani, I have watched him compete, last to last time when he stepped on stage, when he was doing classic physique versus how he looked last year. It's amazing for me to see these guys, growing up the ranks, improving their physique, all of that, Rajat Goel, all these guys. But, does it make me, does it tempt me, when somebody walks up and says, Abhi aapko bhi compete karna chahiye? Look, I'm only in competition with myself, and I know what it takes to be there, having, done some sort of competitions myself, and I'm not ready to do that. I just don't have that kind of commitment. But that doesn't mean that I'm not committed to improving on a day-to-day basis. Within the boundaries that I have, I'm very happy to be very, very patient with myself and enjoying the process. And some of the people that I today look up to are people who look great in their 40s and 50s, even 60s. And that's what I'm really targeting. I'm looking at how can I sustain this or maybe improve this as I go into my 40s. I'll be turning 36 in November this year. So my goal is to understand how do I continue looking like this or improve this into my 40s, 50s, 60s. Ashik Suleiman sent me a very beautiful video about sarcopenia, which is muscle wasting in older gentlemen, older people. And there was a TEDx talk that he showed me where there is a 70-year-old athlete versus a normal 70-year-old sedentary man, and how the athlete has maintained his muscle mass by exercising regularly. I want to be that case study. I want my peers and all over the years to realize that resistance training and being devoted to lifting weights and improving yourself physically is what is really going to help you look younger, feel better as the years go, rather than rushing to these detox clinics or whatever. And I think that's my high. That's the reason I started, because I wanted to be strong. That's the reason I still train, because I like being strong. And that's the only reason I will continue to train, because I want to remain strong and I don't want to be a liability when I grow old. It's quite simple.
Yeah. And what you said on the long age and also sustainability, so there was a study also which actually showed that long-term training actually reduces the gap and also between the chronological age and also the
Hmm.
biological age of a person because the
Right.
telomeres, which are the DNA
At a
capping
cellular level,
of a
that's
human.
what happens, right?
So very
If the
valid
length
point.
of telomeres reduce, then
Yeah.
you're aging even faster. So the length remains a
Mhm.
lot more if you're into
Exactly.
resistance training and all of that. And again, I mean, for everybody's understanding, one of my biggest lessons that I have learned is sleep. And sleep is something that so many of us overlook. You and I have spoken about this extensively so much, where I have kept telling you that, hi, you
Yeah.
have to improve your sleep. There is really no two ways to it. And for me today,
Yeah.
I realize this, that no amount of money, work, or responsibilities should compromise my sleep. That's the only thing that worries me when my sleep gets reduced by any chance. So, be consistent with your training, but at the same time, don't compromise your sleep at any cost. I mean, make sure that also happens, because if aging is hitting us hard, it's primarily because most of us compromise our sleep.
Yeah. And guys, for everyone, so when I was training with Arun, I used to, in fact, there was so much of pressure on me to have a faster transformation that I was actually very excited about my next day workout. So I was not able to sleep properly for more than 4 or 5 hours at the day. And Arun kept telling me that "Abhay, you need to sleep at least for 7 to 8 hours, minimum six and
Hmm.
a half hours to seven. You need to sleep. But I was never able to
Still,
do
you
it.
achieve what you achieved.
Just
Still, you
after
achieved what you
submitting my
achieved. I
test,
mean, as the saying goes, if you aim for the moon, then at least you'll reach the skies. It's as simple as that. So yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And the very next day, after submitting my picks, I slept for nearly 7.5 hours. And that morning, I told her that now I have been able to sleep. So don't be
Right.
pressurized about things in your life. They will, even if in case you sleep or you don't sleep, things over a period of time will not change because of your sleep. Okay, you are not on border. So second thing, what I did is I started following Arun on his sleep sort of pattern. So he sleeps. I and him, in fact, had an interaction with him that how he managed to sleep, and with his busy schedule also how he's in fact not actually worrying about other things, and still able to get up at 5:30 in the morning, and then and I think from past many years we have been doing
I
that.
look forward to my mornings. I'm
So
the
I
most
followed
energetic
him.
in my mornings. That's when I am,
Yeah.
I have all the ideas. That's when I put down my, I even sit down and make plans and stuff like that. Plus, I love freaking people out when I send them messages at 5 o'clock in the morning, because they're all waking up at 7:30. So whether it's my chartered accountant, whether it's my clients, whether it's even Supriya, who wakes up at around 7:30, I'm like, all my ideas are floating at that time in the morning, and that's when I'm like firing away. Also, it's the most peaceful time of the day. There is no sound and nothing,
Yeah.
everybody's quiet in the house, and that's when I'm buzzing. So I make myself a good cup of coffee, like a nice americano or something, and then I just sit and start punching out mails and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So I look forward to that, which is why I look forward to hitting the bed early. And another thing that I've realized over the years is, evening training doesn't work for me from a sleep perspective. I just don't get that good sleep
Mhm.
if I train in the evenings. So, especially close to bedtime. So, I
Yeah.
try to get my training done by like mid
Yeah.
morning or afternoons at the most. And by the time it's 9, 10 o'clock in the night, I'm already like falling asleep. So, there's so many days where I'm like, I'm supposed to sleep at 10, but by 9 o'clock I'm like, you know what, I'm going to bed, and I just go and sleep off. So yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So Arun told me a very interesting thing that if in case you are not able to, and you wake up at somewhere about, he told me that you wake up at 5:30 consistently in the morning, and that has been my schedule
Hmm.
from past I think 7 8 years. So if in case you are not able to sleep early, like I used to sleep somewhere about
Hmm.
11:30 or 12 o'clock. So what he told me that you need to have your
Right.
dinner quite early, and then you go to bed early. So now what happens, Arun, from past, I
Hmm.
think, 8, 9 months, I go to bed, I think, around 9:30 or 10. By 10 o'clock, I
Right.
am, in fact, dozed off. By 10 o'clock, I sleep. And now I'm able to achieve that somewhere about 7.5 hours of sleep quite
That's good to
easily.
know. I wasn't
So
aware of that.
that
That's good
waste
to know
goes to you, Arun.
that.
Yeah. So now you see that whenever we, in fact, interact in the morning at 5 o'clock, 5:15, whenever, in fact, you
Hmm.
ping me or you, in fact, send any text,
Hmm.
I immediately respond. So I'm awake
No,
by
no,
that time.
I like I have a close
So,
interaction
Arun,
with a lot of
yeah,
5 a.m.s, a lot of 5 a.m. club members. So सुबह सुबह उनके
uh-huh,
साथ कुछ अलग लेवल पे इंटरेक्शन होता है.
yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
बिल्कुल, बिल्कुल. So, Arun, it was a fantastic session with you. In fact, we got to learn so many things about diet, adherence, workout, how should anybody approach workout in their daily lifestyle, irrespective of whatever
Right.
level they are. And how important is actually tracking things in terms of their diet also, workout also, how is anybody feeling about how they are working out, what kind of communication anybody should have with their coaches in terms of
Right.
what they want to do, how they want to look, what are their personal goals in terms of how they should look like, say,
Hmm.
1 year down the line, 2 year down the line, and with that goal also, how
Right.
patient they should be. So that is very important to set up. So, well, thanks so much for your time, Arun. It
My
was
pleasure,
very
my pleasure.
valuable, as
All I will
always.
say is that,
Connect with you.
I said this a million times on my stories and I'll say it again and again. The best diet is the diet you can sustain and enjoy. The best workout is the one that you enjoy. The
Yeah,
best lifestyle that you can have is
yeah,
the one that live live every day, and you have fun with it. So find your
hmm,
balance. That's the question that you need to ask yourself every day. Find the balance. If you're really good
hmm,
at whatever it is that you're doing, but if you're burnt out by a Wednesday or a Thursday and you feel something is missing in your life, you need to see how you can reintroduce that. And lockdown taught me all these things in terms of going back to a little bit of gaming, reading, listening to music, all these things. Like I've gone back to my motorcycling again. I make sure that I make time and I go for rides. My friend and client here, Mr. Gurucharan, he's an amazing
hmm.
partner. He's helped me explore a few places in and around Hyderabad. So in fact,
Oh,
I am
okay.
actually, I would say I have compromised my work to a certain extent, but I'm overall a lot more happy. And I've started delegating more work to my
Hmm.
team now and making more time for myself. And I teach them the same thing as well, that it's not that I work less and I expect you guys to work more. I want you also to now start delegating work to somebody under you so that even you have more time for yourself. So quality of
Hmm.
life really matters in the long run. And maybe you can tell yourself that I'll sacrifice my
Absolutely.
20s
Yeah.
and 30s to live my 40s and 50s more peacefully. आजकल किसी के लाइफ की गारंटी नहीं है. You would rather make sure that the life you
Bilkul.
have right now, you're living it to the fullest, and you're healthy, you're hearty, you're mentally present when you're
Hmm.
talking to someone, you're not thinking about five other things, and you just have
Hmm.
a good work life balance. And I think that's what people really need to focus on, and
Yeah,
that's going to give you consistency on everything, in having a better relationship with your family, with your work,
yeah.
with your health, all overall. At least that's my biggest learning.
Absolutely. Wonderful message at the end, Arun. We'll keep
Thanks
interacting
for
and
this
we'll
opportunity.
keep
No,
chatting,
thanks
Arun.
for this
Thanks so
opportunity. I'm
much for
glad we
yours.
finally got to do
Yeah,
this. You have a good weekend, and thank you to all who took out time
absolutely,
and
Arun.
watched this.
You too.
Cheers, guys. Have a good weekend.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.